All right, welcome back. Hey, if you've got a modern history exam coming up, you're going to want to pay close attention to this. Today we're doing a quick-fire review of a huge topic, the financial fallout of World War I. We're going to look at how money, debt, and reparations really shaped the entire 20th century. So let's get right into it.
You've probably heard this phrase, right? The war to end all wars. It's just so tragically ironic when you think about it. I mean, the fighting was on a scale nobody had ever seen before. It was so brutal, so devastating, that people genuinely believed, okay, that's it. No one will ever want to do this again. But as we're about to see, the money problems it left behind, well, they created a whole different kind of danger.
Okay, so here's what we're covering. First, we'll talk about that whole war to end wars idea. Then, we'll crunch the numbers, and I mean the staggering cost. After that, we'll see how Europe's economy was just ruined. Then, we'll zoom in on Germany's massive bill from the Treaty of Versailles. And finally, we'll connect all those dots to see how this mess literally paved the way for World War II.
All right, first up, the war to end wars. You know, before 1914, wars were usually kind of regional, right? A couple of countries fighting over some land. But this was totally different. It was the first war that was truly global. It dragged in empires and soldiers from all over the planet. It was, simply put, the biggest war anyone had ever seen.
And look, we always talk about the human cost, and we absolutely should. The millions of lives lost is just heartbreaking. But the financial side of it, the impact was just as huge. The decisions made about money after the war ended up sending these massive shockwaves through the next few decades. It completely changed who held the power in the world.
Okay, on to our second part, the staggering cost of war. So, the cost of this conflict, it's honestly hard to even wrap your head around just how ridiculously expensive it was. To really get it, you got to look at the numbers. So, take a look at this number, 3.8 million pounds. Any guesses what that bought? A bunch of new tanks, maybe? A whole battleship? Nope. That was the cost of just the bullets for one single day of fighting back in September 1918. Just bullets, in one day. That really gives you a sense of the insane amount of money being spent.
And all that spending brings us right to our next point, Europe's economic ruin. I mean, you can't just spend money like that without massive consequences, right? It totally transformed, and in a lot of cases just wrecked the economies of entire nations, leaving them on the edge of collapse.
And this right here is a perfect example. Think about Britain. Before the war, they were basically the world's bank, the economic superpower. And after, the country was buried in debt, especially to the United States. And just like that, the US became the new top dog financially. The war pretty much just emptied Britain's treasury and knocked them off their top spot. Okay, on to Section 4, and this is a really important part of the story, Germany's enormous bill. So, once the fighting stopped, the winners all got together to write up the Treaty of Versailles. The idea was to bring peace, but, well, it was also about pointing fingers and deciding who was going to pay for all the damage.
And the treaty had this thing called the War Guilt Clause. It basically put all the blame squarely on Germany and then handed them this unbelievable bill, 6,600 million pounds. I mean, to put that in perspective, even economists at the time were saying it was an impossible amount of money. How could any country pay that, especially one that was already economically destroyed by the war itself?
So for the average German person, this wasn't just about money. It felt like a total national humiliation. That treaty and the crazy bill that came with it, it just created this huge feeling of resentment, this desire for revenge. This wasn't just about economics anymore. It was personal. It was about national pride.
And that feeling, it leads us right into our last section, paving the way for World War II. So here's the key takeaway, right? The Treaty of Versailles, it didn't create lasting peace. Not at all. In fact, those harsh financial terms basically set the stage perfectly for the next World War. You can actually see it as a chain reaction. Let's break it down. Step 1, you've got the harsh treaty and those impossible reparation payments. That leads to Step 2, widespread poverty and this deep, collective feeling of humiliation. Step 3, an environment like that is super unstable politically. And then, Step 4, into all that chaos and anger steps someone like Adolf Hitler, who knew exactly how to use that anger to his advantage, promising to make Germany great again. It was a perfect storm, really. The financial mess created the ideal conditions for extremism to grow.
So let's end with this question, something to really think about. When you look back at all the financial fallout from the Great War, it really makes you ask a super important question, one that applies to any conflict. Can a peace that's built on punishing someone financially ever really last? Or are you just planting the seeds for the next fight? That's probably the most important thing to remember from all of this.